every other chair.
That's really
So all
good.
of the women.
Yes, it is, yes. I was in Las Vegas a while ago.
Buddy, how are you?
I really need that because I'm gonna get carpal tunnel from this one. Oh, we left it on.
Seriously, I can't even tell you how. You know, I can't tell that story.
You really can't.
So, Melissa's going to the playground.
Yeah, you could.
In Anna's spot?
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
So far I can go. I may. Today goes like yesterday. I may drive fresh time, but so I can go. As of right now, I definitely day. I was you know, giving away food in the hospital and doing all of that. And I thought, she had every time.
I'll tell stories, but if anybody, you're going to want to be able to see the screen. If you can't, you might slide a little bit more center. I personally know nobody likes to sit front and center, but these will be the best seats. I'm recognizable to some of you as we spent 4 hours together yesterday. For some of you, perhaps not. My name is Matt Vogt. I serve as one of 3 of our Synod's mission counselors for the Synod's board for home missions, which means I get to hang with mission-minded people all over a good portion of the country. I serve from the southern tip of Texas up through Alaska and the western half of Canada. Probably working with 70 to 75 different missions or mission groups and future missions and so on. I served as a missionary. I still live in Las Vegas. I served as a missionary there for 20-some years. Got to help start 2 churches there. Got to help train and start a Korean ministry that served about 250 Koreans. Trained an African refugee from Liberia. Served about 100 refugees from a dozen different African nations, and also got to help start a brand new church body in Liberia, which currently serves about 4,000 souls in 29 different locations. And now I serve as a mission counselor, and I am here today in part because I'm actually moonlighting this weekend doing the Everyone Outreach on behalf of a different branch of our church body, the Commission on Evangelism. But I do want to speak with you and share with you this exciting initiative that our church body has committed to. They committed to a year ago, and it'll technically kick off next spring. So it's a 23 through 33 10-year initiative to double our efforts as a church body to start new missions. And so rather than kind of just giving up and going, well, you know, people aren't coming to churches anymore, and we're hemorrhaging members, and we're closing churches, and say, you know what, the gospel still is the power of God for salvation. We're just going to get the word out there and allow the Holy Spirit to do His thing and trust that He's going to get it done. But there are some questions. How are we going to do this? How are we going to do twice as many missions as we've currently been doing in light of what is going on in our society and in in Christianity and so on? So I'm here to help explain how we intend to approach this and share with you some of those things. at any point, I've got lots to share, but at any point you got some questions or want to react to something, please stop me, slow me down. All right, so there's the information on 100 missions in 10 years, plus in addition to the 100 missions, there's 75 what we call enhancements, and that is existing ministries that will then have mission-mindedness, that they come in a wide variety of ways, but usually we're partnering with an existing church that is just doing good stuff and wants to take it to the next level and needs some manpower, and then we'll partner with Home Missions for being able to accomplish that. I'll try to stay out of the way for those of you in the wings. So there's a lot here. I don't expect you to pick up on all this. The point is that we currently support about 140 missions in North America. All across the way. There are 14 mission boards that help support that work. The point of this slide is that the whole mission effort is not about just starting churches. It really is about sharing the gospel, reaching people who don't know Jesus, so that they can come know Christ as their Savior, enjoy the peace and the forgiveness and the promise of eternal life that you and I have. That's what this is about. How are we going to go about doing this then? There are a number of different ways. First of all, so there was a 7-man task force that I was also privileged to be a part of. That we spent about 18 months just doing the work and asking the questions and exploring the options and the answers. And so the end result of that was submitted to the Home Missions this past January, is 55 recommendations about how to go ahead and tackle this. They broken down to a number of categories. One of the big questions is, where are we going to get the manpower? Where are we going to get the pastors? Right? We all aware that there's about 140 not enough pastors, 140 vacancies in our church body right now. And now we're going to go ahead and open twice as many missions. How are we going to do that without having the pastors? It's a very good question. Do know that there are some very good answers. I've got a 10, 15-minute presentation I'm going to be sharing at each of the pastors' conferences this fall with a series of really good answers. I just want to share with you one of them, and that is that as a part of recruitment, a big part of this is just where we need to tap those young men and women. Pastors will be the men, but we have a teacher shortage too. Where are we going to find them? We need to talk to our young people and say, we need you, all right? God's people, the Lord wants and needs people to commit to being pastors and teachers. And so one of the ways to do that is, instead of having the synod come up with some really cool recruitment video, or having our Martin Luther College come up with some big fancy recruitment video, we tapped 6 missionaries on the shoulders and asked them, if you had an opportunity to sit down with that junior, that senior in high school, how would you communicate what you do, the joy, the passion, the importance of what you do to that young guy? The first of those videos has been created, and it's been created by one of the missionaries that is here in your district over in Portland, Oregon. And I want to share his video with you because I thought it was really, really well done. All right, now I got to do this. All right, let's see if this works. So again, this is one of what will be hopefully 6 mission videos, recruitment videos. The target audience is that that sophomore, that junior, that senior in high school who's trying to figure out what he's going to do with his life, and maybe a little bit interested in perhaps being a pastor, but maybe a little spooked by it, intimidated by it, a little concerned about whether that's really for him. This pretty short video, because of course they don't have a long attention span either. Here we go.
Hello, dear friend. My name is Pastor Paul Borman. I'm privileged to be able to say that I am a church planting pastor in Tigard, Oregon, in southwest Portland. I want to be real honest with you here. When I was in high school and in college, I had a lot of nerves about being a pastor. I saw all the studying I was going to have to do with the Greek and the Hebrew I was going to have to learn and try and master. And I saw that I was going to have to learn to get comfortable standing up in front of a big group of people with a memorized sermon that I had written that week, and I got really nervous about. Maybe you're feeling that way something that was really, really good for me and really calmed my nerves about being a pastor is when I visited my older brother for a mission trip. He's a mission pastor out in Queens, New York. And when I got to go out to his church for a mission experience, I got to experience firsthand what it means to be a pastor, specifically a missions pastor. What it means to really care about people, and what it's like for someone when they hear the gospel for the first time spoken to them. After that, I understood a lot better than I did before what it means to be a pastor. And I pray that today I can share a little bit of that with you over this video today. So, I mentioned that I'm a church planting pastor, and this means that my job description is really very, very simple. Preach the gospel. Go out and live your whole life for Jesus and share the gospel along the way. This means that I get to go out and share the gospel while I do the things that I already love to do. For example, I love to run. So a day at work, for me, sometimes, means running a race with a guy who's wearing a unicorn costume. And after the race, getting to go out to lunch afterwards with the friends that I made along the way. And sometimes, going to work also means running an entire lap around Mount St. Helens, running through the blast zone, running through where the volcano erupted, and talking about Jesus with the guy I'm with as we run. Along with that, it also might mean going to the local high school football game with your kids so that you can get a little bit more involved, connected in the local community. Being a missionary definitely means a few other things. I'll show you these pictures here. Being a missionary definitely means sharing meals with new friends and family. It means watching outdoor movies with friends in the backyard. It means hosting a Mario Kart tournament with prospects. It means driving a U-Haul for a new member. It means having a surprise engagement happen at the front of church after worship. And it means meeting world champions. That's Ashton, by the way. You should look him up. World champion. Now, I hope I can show you here, even with just a few pictures, that it's not a pastor's natural ability to study or to preach or to teach that makes him an effective pastor. Every pastor grows in those things. And it's not a pastor's office space that makes him a faithful pastor. Sometimes a pastor's office is like mine, and the office happens at a coffee shop or at a park or even in my garage. And it's not a beautiful church building that makes a church beautiful. And we started our worship inside a small second-story office space, and now we worship inside a local theater where we move in and we unload a trailer and we pack in everything we need for worship and we pack it out at the end of the day. It's not the church building that makes the church beautiful. What makes a pastor faithful and effective is the word that he carries. The saving word of the gospel of Jesus. And what makes a church beautiful is the Savior that it proclaims in everything that it does. So maybe right now you're feeling nerves. Maybe it's about the study, or maybe it's about the preaching, or maybe it's about going to meetings, or maybe it's something else. I'll give you a hint. You maybe know. Think about it. If you cannot speak like angels, if you cannot preach like Paul, you can tell the love of Jesus. You can say he died for all. If you cannot rouse the wicked with the judgment's dread alarms, you can lead the little children to the Savior's waiting arms. Preach the gospel. What a wonderful calling it is. God's blessings to you.
All right, So again, that's one of what will be 6 individual missionaries talking to a potential young man who's
Check out the
considering.
Chevy truck sales event at Peterson Chevy. New Chevy trucks are hitting the lot. Pick up.
Love our ads. There are a bunch of I practiced this like 8 times to figure out how to get from one to the other again, but anyways. There are a number of other things that are being done to try to increase the number of pastors, potential missionaries. So, for example, first of all, you should know that there's some really good stuff that's already been happening. So we've been graduating classes in the 20s for quite some time. This year's vicars are in the 30s, like 37. The junior class, the first year class at the seminary, my son's a part of that. That class is 47 students. So we're already kind of starting to trend in a really good direction. But there's other cool stuff. So in next weekend or 2 weeks from now, we're going to be having 11 students from MLS that are just thinking about what they're going to do with their lives. Instead of them going for a 4-day weekend back with their home pastor in a kind of established Midwest church that they're familiar with, we're going to send them across the country to hang out for 4 days with our missionaries, and to have 4 days rubbing shoulders with them and seeing what that looks like, and that might spark some interest. All sorts of other things. Anyways, there's some really cool stuff that's happening with the curriculum, with the recruitment, and seeing some good opportunities for us having a number of more pastors. The other thing has to do with the finances of it, and I won't bore you with the details. There's a chart that shows how we could accomplish this. The exciting thing is that we just got a report last Thursday from the Synod's chief financial officer, who ran all the numbers, and he says, you know what, this really is doable, right? So it'll require a number of different things, but there are a variety of sources, as you can kind of see, built into that chart, and he says that it's very realistic. So the mission pastor component is probably a little bit more of a concern than the financial component. And then the other thing has to do with the other resources that are necessary to be able to support all these missions, the district mission boards and the mission counselors and the mission staff and all of that. And again, recognizing that this is not just a home missions effort. This is just a sample of the affiliated ministries throughout our synod that are eager to be a part of this. So one of the task force that I was a part of was just reaching out to all the different entities throughout our church body and saying, if you were to be a part of this, what might that look like? Is this something that you would want to be a part of? And everybody was excited to brainstorm and consider how they would play a role in this. So, like I said, there's 10, 12, I believe there are 20 different entities that I was working with, all of whom were happy to be able to support and be a part of this effort. So it's not just a home missions thing. This is a church body, church-wide thing that all of these entities are eager to get behind. So then how do we go about doing this? How does our synod plant churches? And what I want to do with the next half hour or so that we've got left is not only walk you through the steps of a new church plant, but then also be able to give you an update. I'm going to share a bunch of pictures, and as time allows, some stories to give you an update on some of the work that we have been doing, are doing, and as you were talking about the stages of a new church, to also just give you some things to add to your prayers, and get some specific individuals and missions on your heart and mind. So, first of all, it starts with our district mission boards and our mission counselors brainstorming, exploring new fields, seeing new opportunities, and then talking to people in the area to help determine the viability of a new mission start there. I share this picture just because the fun fact, the 2 of the 3, this, by the way, part of this, I tweaked it, but part of this came from the Synod's presentation that's going on around the country. 2 of the 3 slides or pictures on this slide is from here in town, right? So you can't see the one on the far right real well, but they're celebrating their 25th anniversary today, the Vietnamese ministry, Peace in Jesus. And then, of course, you should perhaps recognize the mission pastor that I got to preach there last month. with Pastor Wetzel up at Cross of Christ just north of here. All right, so how do we go about starting these mission churches? First step is probably 18 months, 2 years, 2.5 years, 3 years of work with a small group of people long before they ever get approval from the Board for Missions or get a pastor on site. So I was just in Bentonville, Arkansas on Wednesday night. Anybody know why we'd want to start a church in Bentonville, Arkansas? What's Bentonville, Arkansas? Home of Walmart, right? There are 500,000 people that live in Northwest Arkansas at the moment. It's supposed to be 1 million. Double in size in the next 10 years. It is an international community. Anybody who wants to have an office with Walmart, wants to do work with Walmart, has to have an office and people in Bentonville, Arkansas. So it is blowing up. It's awesome. This is our core group there. Again, we just met on Wednesday night, and we're hoping to be able to get a request and approval this winter. North Collin County, that's where I was last Sunday night. I was in North Collin County. That's on the north side of Dallas. This is our core group there. The two fastest growing cities, Bentonville's amazing, and yet it's still not the fastest. The two fastest growing cities in the country are side by side. They're sister cities bleeding into each other, and we don't have a church in either on the north side of Dallas. So this is our core group to help make that happen. Coming from the congregation at Atonement in Plano, but this is about a half hour, 40 minutes north of that. So, working with those groups, putting a request together to the Board for Missions, making the case for why we should have a new mission start. We just had meetings in Milwaukee a week and a half ago. Different mission boards reported on how many missions they plan to submit. Between the new starts and enhancements, there are 39 requests that are coming in this winter, right? So there's tons of great opportunity. Now, if you do the math, even if we did 10 and 7.5 every year, only half of those will get approval. So you should know, as God's people who are supporting it with your congregational mission offerings, that you are only making good investments, that only the best of the best get approved. And so there are some really, really neat opportunities. All right, so then that approval happens. The next one will happen next spring of 23 in April. These were the ones that this past April got approved in spring of 2022. You can see the different congregations, the new mission efforts that got approved. I'm going to just give you a little sample. I get to work with 3 of those 5. Conroe, Texas, Wichita, Kansas, Windsor, Colorado. Windsor, Colorado has, I believe, tomorrow night, Monday night, tomorrow night, I will be at that meeting. They will be holding a call meeting. This will be their 4th one, the 4th one since April that they've been calling to get their mission pastor. So they'll be holding a new call meeting on Monday. We've got 3 churches in the area: Fort Collins, Colorado. This is all north of Denver. Fort Collins, Loveland, and Greeley, Shepherd Hills and Greeley, and they form a triangle, and in the middle of that triangle is Windsor, Colorado. All 3 congregations contributed members to our core group. Conroe, Texas, this is on the north side of Houston, just the next one. Houston, I believe it's the 4th largest city in the United States, and it just keeps growing. And so Conroe's the next one north, and this is our mission group there. They are the first of our missions that got their pastor. The first pastor that they called, Pastor Jeremy Maddock, accepted that call. He was installed this summer, and they're off to the races. In fact, there's a member in their core group that is planning on buying the land and building the church himself. So that's a real blessing. Along with that, our missionaries right now, one of the changes we're going to do is we're having really good conversations with the seminary about changing up curriculum, so we're actually training missionaries. Right now we train pastors as generalists because they get sent out to all sorts of different settings, and they might be in a congregation of 1,000 people, or they might go to a group of 10 people and have to start a church. And so we just have to kind of train them to be able to do a little bit of anything or everything. But we are changing that up and having more and more instruction for church planters, knowing that there's going to be a higher percentage of them who are going to go into church planting settings and or to restart congregations. But for the time being, most of these guys, they get little training in how to actually start a church. And so once they accept the call to be a missionary, we send them to a 4-day weekend where they get 4 years of material fire hosed at them through this church planter intensive seminar that happens in Colorado. And so at least they're given some really good tools and resources. On top of that, they get a coach. For 2 years, they have another missionary who's been a missionary for 5-6 years, is not as old or removed from it like 20 years from me, like me, but they'll also, in addition to me, have a coach that's about 4 or 5 years out in front of them, ahead of them, and living the same kind of things that they're living and experiencing. And for 2 years, they'll meet on a monthly basis to kind of help work through in that process. So, worship begins starting year 2, and lots of outreach that goes along with that. Just be able to share a couple celebrations. So, 2 weekends ago, September 11th, 3 of our missions kicked off their first launch service officially. One of those is Christ Our Refuge in Hewitt, Texas. That is just south of, basically it's Waco, Texas. Fun fact there's lots of fun stories related to that, but I'll just share one with you. I know this is a small picture, but this guy right here, Matt, is the head football trainer for Baylor University. The night before, September 10th, if you followed your college football, Baylor played BYU at like a 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock game. It went into double overtime, maybe even double overtime. It didn't get done until after 1 a.m. Then after all the players were showered, they take a flight back to Waco, Texas. Matt gets there and his car battery is dead in the Baylor University parking lot. Has to figure out his way home. Gets an hour of sleep and is at the grand opening service. Sticks around for the fellowship and everything afterwards. Then has to, by 2 p.m., get back to the university to do all the icing and the therapy on all the football players the day before. So you may have even seen him, by the way, as the head football trainer. He's the guy that runs out on the field when there's an injury just before they cut to commercial. Right? So you may be seeing Matt on TV. So the other one was in San Antonio, Texas, West San Antonio, Texas. Pastor Micah Kelpine, and so he's the guy with the beard on the right-hand side picture. On the left-hand side, this was just a shot I took from my seat there. I was there on last weekend, September 18th, to celebrate their launch service. And then, by the way, that was a multi-site from Our Savior in San Antonio, so this is just on the west side of San Antonio. And the other one was in Amarillo, Texas, up in the Panhandle. This one also just some fun stories. This one I kind of have a special heart for. My son spent the summer as a summer vicar there. It was exciting to him because the Sunday before he left, they had a practice service. He wasn't able to be here for the launch service because he had to get back to school. But the Sunday before, one of the families that he had been out canvassing and knocking doors on showed up for church that Sunday. And then he was excited to hear that on this Sunday, September 11th, another one of the families that he had met when he was out canvassing came to worship. So, but I want to tell the story about this right here real quick. The weekend, my wife and I went down to visit them, and they did an outreach event, and they did this food drive canvassing thing. Have you guys heard of that? Have you done that, the food drive canvas? All right, it's the best of both worlds, right? So today we need, in terms of outreach, it's less about what do I got to do to get all those people out there into here, and more about what do I got to do to get all these people in here out there. And so community involvement, nonprofit volunteering, and just doing that. But this was that coupled with canvassing. And I'll just share with you, I wish I had this in my toolbox as a missionary years ago, because I would just do it over and over again, rinse, repeat, recycle. What we did is they handed out flyers one weekend to 300 homes, right? Maybe like 4 or 5 streets. 300 homes, and they partnered with the area food bank, and 2/3 of their flyer was about the food bank, about the food insecurity in the community and who they need to serve and why it's important. But on the bottom, it had a little information, and our church, right, Amazing Grace in Amarillo, has partnered with High Plains Food Bank, and we're going to be coming by next week Saturday. And if you want to contribute, go ahead and leave that food in these bags that we're dropping off, and we'll come by and we'll pick it up, right? And what you've done is, first of all, you've told the community, we care about the community. This isn't our food bank. This is something that's for, for the general population. We're also making it easy, right? People want to contribute. People want to do those kind of things, even secularly. It makes them feel good. They're helping others, whatever. But you've made it super easy for them. They don't have to figure out where the food bank is. They don't have to bother going up and dropping it off, right? All they got to do is pick a few extra groceries off and put it in a bag and put it on their porch. You're going to come and do all the rest of that, right? So then the next week, come by between 9 and 12 like you promised. And we knocked on all the doors. The doors, of course, that had the food out, we knocked on the door just to let them know, hey, we're not some weirdos coming stealing your food. Like, we're so-and-so. Thank you very much for contributing. And the moment we said thank you, they said the same. No, thank you, right? This is awesome. More churches ought to be doing this, right? This is great. Thanks for doing this. Thanks for making this easy. And that wall that if you've ever done canvassing, there's a bit of a wall, a little skepticism that's up the moment you're knocking on their door, and why are you bothering me? That's down, right? First of all, they were expecting you. Second of all, they appreciate what you're doing. You're making this easy for them. The wall is down, and the opportunity to have a meaningful conversation then is simple. It really is simple. We also knocked on the doors for people that didn't put food there, because about half of the people that answer the door, the moment they saw our T-shirt, the moment they saw that bag, they're like, "Oh shoot, that was this weekend, wasn't it? I wanted to just give me a minute." Run back, right, grab some groceries and put it in, and you're right back where you were with the ones that were contributing in the first place. So, and then when Pastor went back third week, and with thank yous to all those that contributed. So you got 3 opportunities for engagement. The second and third one, the wall's already down. It's just thank you, no thank you, and now, right, we get to have a meaningful conversation about the church, the gospel. The other fun thing is that when they dropped off the food bank took that picture and a couple other pictures, posted it on their Facebook page, along with a big thank you to Amazing Grace and a link to their website on the High Plains Food Bank Facebook page. So it's a win-win-win-win. Like I said, if I had this in my toolbox as a missionary, I would have just done it over and over again. Did those 3 streets, hand off the one weekend, hand off the information, the next weekend pick up the food, next week come back with a thank you, maybe take a week off, and then go 3 blocks over and do the same thing. I would just do it over and over and over again. All right. The other fun one, so Joplin, Missouri. This, if that at all rings a bell to you, you recall that about, I think it's 12, 13 years now, the tornado went right through the middle of town, wiped out a mile wide and a mile long, right through the middle of downtown Joplin. Right now, what's really cool is that our mission effort that started up, and they kicked off in December of 2020, they have a storefront on Main Street, 5,000 square foot building on Main Street. They've got amazing visibility. Everybody knows that they're there. They currently have 45 kids attending 2 different sessions of the Mommies and Me program. They go to this Third Thursday festival every weekend and give out 250 plants along with information about the church, and just absolutely killing it. It's really exciting stuff. So Pastor Jordan and his wife Laura, they just cooked some really nice barbecue for me on Monday night. So, all right, years 4 and 5 as we're moving on, right, as the congregation starts to progress. Just to give you a little bit of an insight, so Candelas, Colorado, this is a multi-site from Shepherd of the Valley, on the north side of Denver. This is up against the foothills. They have recently purchased land. That's Pastor Jeremy Belcher there. This isn't much of a picture. It's basically, I'm showing you, don't even bother with the buildings per se. It's that vacant land there. This is a fun story. So our mission church in Falcon, Colorado, which is on the northeast side of Colorado Springs, they were looking for land. Stuff is not cheap there. Looking for property. One day the realtor called Pastor up, Pastor Prawl, Steve Prawl, and he said, "Hey, what you got going on tomorrow?" He goes, actually calendar's pretty busy. He goes, "You might want to clear your calendar." He goes, "Yeah, you know what? I got a number of things. They're kind of clear your calendar." So he was invited over to a realtor. The realtor invited him over to this big fancy office building. Get into this fancy building with some muckety-muck, and a couple lawyers in there. And the guy ends up being the wealthiest landowner in the state of Colorado, who also is a strong Christian. And he's talking to Pastor Prawl, and he's asking him just kind of small talk, and then getting into some questions. And at some point, he goes, "You know what? I'm just going to cut to the chase. What's your stance on homosexuality?" Pastor said you could have seen the eyes of the lawyers. Their eyes got this big, like, you can't ask that question. But, I shared with them, our stance on that and approach, the balanced law gospel approach to it. And anyways, the guy said, all right, I'll tell you what. I've got 6 acres of land right on the corner, right across the street from the brand new middle school, in the middle of all those new homes that are going up. It's worth $1.8 million. I'll sell it to you for $600. Now, if I find out that you're not who you claim to be, we're going to have another conversation, right? But anyway, so it's a 67% reduction on prime real estate. So they're now working on their construction plans, but it's amazing, amazing location. Years 6 and 7 now is usually it's probably closer to 7 when we're looking at possibly then building the building. We work with the Synods Church Extension Fund, which is very generous. They have a matching grant program, so when you build that building, you have to come up with 10% of that. Let's say a 7,500 square foot building these days is costing us like $2.5 million. The mission has to come up with $250,000, but then CEF is going to give you a 2-to-1 matching grant. So in that case, they'd give a gift of $450,000. The land, I should back up. CEF, when you buy that land, let's say that $600,000 piece of land. The mission had to come up with $60,000, and CEF will match that 4-to-1. They'll give them $240,000 gift that's going to write that off. So CEF is a very generous partner in our work. In addition to that, they actually just also give annual grants to the home missions from their proceeds as God's blessing that aspect of our ministry. Here's just a sample of some of the churches that have recently dedicated buildings, and I'm just going to highlight just a little information, zero in on a couple of these. Carbon Valley in Firestone, Colorado. This is north of Denver, about 45 minutes. Pastor Tim Spiegelberg. This one's kind of neat. They bought an old nursery, and they renovated that nursery and turned it into a 12,000 square foot church/preschool. So being creative about the type of facilities, the building was already there. We just had to gut it and make it a church. This is Living Shepherd, Laramie, Wyoming, just outside, probably about, 45 minutes or so, an hour away from Cheyenne. They bought a church on the outskirts of town. Normally, you'd like to be a little bit more in town, but what's the beauty about this is that there are 2 routes from Wyoming down to Denver, and which a lot of those people take all the time. And this is one of the 2. The one's on the big interstate, and the other is the more scenic route that a lot of people take just because there's less traffic and it's much more beautiful. And this is right on that way out. This church was available not because the church was dying, but because this church had been doing so well that they needed to expand. And it created this opportunity for the mission to get out of the community center that they're working in and buy this building. They're in the process of renovating it and adding another 2,000 square feet to it. And so that is still ongoing. And then the Vine, Hayden, Idaho, something very similar. So this is up Coeur d'Alene, right? North part of the state, multi-site from Spokane in Washington, St. Matt's in Spokane. This, they also were just kind of bouncing around from space to space that by the time they got in, it was almost always too small. They were able to buy this church and are also in the process of not only renovating it, but expanding it also, which just happened this spring. So that's Pastor Kevin Schultz. And then finally, this one you're familiar with, right? Just 20-30 minutes north of here. And their dedication, obviously they've been using it for a while. I got to preach there in July. But their dedication is next week Sunday, right? 2 o'clock and 5 o'clock, 2 opportunities to go up and celebrate with them, right? All right, and then years 8 through 10, as the congregation now is in their building, what often happens, not always, but if they're doing the work and working hard and continuing to do that work, and now after 7-8 years, all those seeds that you've been planting, relationships that you've been developing are starting to all kind of come together. And what often happens when we get into a new place is that we almost double in size within 18 to 24 months, as you're the kind of the new church and the new part of town, and again all that other work has come together. And the goal is that then over that span, in the 8 to 10 to 12 year range, you're now getting to the point of being self-supporting. So this was actually our daughter congregation in Las Vegas, Shepherd of the Hills. They are self-supporting as of this summer, as is Eternal Rock, Castle Rock. This is where, by the way, where the Church Planners Intensive Seminar happens and is conducted. So, but they are also going to be self-supporting by the end of the year. And then moving on then in being something that not only is a healthy congregation, self-supporting congregation, but very often this mission-mindedness that they have is something that they're going to just continue to spur on and feed off of and share with others. So there's just kind of some fun examples. So this is Crosswalk in downtown, well, in Phoenix. And they decided, instead of going out to the next growing area of Phoenix, which our mission board is doing, and we've got multiple missions in the greater Phoenix area, and I think 2 of the requests this year are coming in from Phoenix. But they decided they're going to go back downtown, and there was an area that everybody agreed that that nobody else, the other churches weren't serving, and so they call it Midtown. And it's just the gentrification of the community. All these young professionals that don't want to drive the 45 minutes from the suburbs to get back downtown and to work, they'd rather live down there. And so their second campus of Crosswalk is right downtown. This one's personal to me. Our congregation, a mission congregation, we daughtered Shepherd of the Hills, which is now self-supporting. Started the Korean ministry. I didn't have enough spaces. We also had the African ministry in town, and then led to a church, a whole world mission effort in Liberia. Again, a mission congregation that just has that spirit and just wants to continue to reciprocate. Here's another one, Shepherd of the Valley, Shepherd of the Mountains in Reno, Nevada. In 2008, they started the Springs, which was self-supporting by 2018, and started Light of the Valleys, the 3rd mission in Reno. And the goal there is, all the churches want to keep working. The goal is to have 5 churches in the Reno area when the time comes. Another aspect of home missions is campus ministry. A lot of really good stuff that's going on there. They have Pastor Dan Linder, who's been called as their first-time full-time mission counselor. And Pastor Linder, then, I think they've got 19 new campus ministries in the last 2 years. So a lot of growth in the campus ministry area, including a couple pastors that were assigned to campus ministries. So all sorts of ways to help. First of all, prayer. Prayer is powerful. The prayer of righteous people is powerful and effective. Please pray. And we'll come back to that in a minute. There are all sorts of ways to get involved. I'll share with you a couple opportunities locally. But there are also neat ways to be able to get involved by, if there's any interest in going and being a part of a mission effort for a weekend, for a week, for a couple weeks, to go in a new mission setting, or even in a mission setting that's just trying to get started. There are also long-term opportunities. So there are 2 that we're trying. One is Idaho Falls, and the other is Bentonville, where we're looking for a family or 2 that's willing to actually move there and spend 2-3 years there as a part of a new church plant. In places where Idaho Falls is probably the most critical right now. Bentonville's coming together. I think I got 5 families in Bentonville. Back in January we had 0. But Idaho Falls, we have only 2 families, 2 hardworking families. I was just there Thursday and Friday. We spent Praise and Proclaim. We knocked on doors in the summer. We got 19 leads. I knocked on all of their doors on Thursday and Friday, following up with them. But it's kind of hard to get something done from a distance, and those 2 families are doing what they can and working hard, but we haven't gotten that 3rd or 4th family yet. So we're making the appeal to people around the church body. If you want to be a part of trying to get something started from scratch, that core group is probably one of the hardest things to get going. And if someone wants to go and spend 2-3 years as a part of that, kind of an exciting way to get involved. Opportunities to have kind of get the word out. There's all sorts of ways to be able to find out and keep up with what's going on in the home missions effort. So lots of cool stuff. Let me just end with this with a couple minutes I have. I want to just plant a seed. This is off of wallethub.com, which was showing, I believe this is maybe a year old, but the 10 fastest growing cities in the United States by different metrics. It's not just about population. There's different things. But you'll notice that 2 of the 10 are right here in the Treasure Valley, right? This is a place where people are coming. You know it. I'm not telling you anything you don't know, all right? You're dealing with the traffic. You're dealing with the construction. But this is a growing place, and a place where we need to continue to serve the souls that God's bringing here from California and Washington and wherever all else they're coming. So again, I'm sure this isn't news to you, but I mean, it's almost a doubling in size from 600-some thousand to over 1 million in the next 8 to 10 years. This is a map that our mission board is working off of. The blue dotted lines are our existing ministries, our existing congregations. The other 3 shaded circles is where some of us believe we ought to have churches, right? That when this is all filled out, the average church, Wells people are going to travel farther, but the average unchurched person is going to find church within 3 to 5 miles of their house. Your reach as a church beyond Wells people, or maybe a few of the really good friends of your people, is only 4 to 5 miles across. So as this starts to fill out, and more of that green becomes homes, houses, people, there's opportunity for us eventually to, I believe, put 3 new churches here that aren't serving those communities. So 1 in South Meridian, Cuna, 1 in Caldwell, and 1 up in the Star area. There's just some of the numbers, by the way. If you look at the 3rd line, that's the projected growth for the next 10 years. Caldwell, 24,000, South Meridian, 32,000, Star, 16,000, and Idaho Falls, where we're trying to do the work already, is 24,000. So those are new people. Those are basically entire cities. One of the places that I'm trying to do, one of the places we're trying to put a new church in is Buffalo, Wyoming, population 7,000. Sheridan, population 20,000. Right? There are populations, this entire size of those 2 communities combined, that are going to be just brand new here in each one of those areas over the course of the next 10 years. Entire new cities that are moving in. So lots of opportunity as we think about sharing the gospel here in the Treasure Valley. All right, it's almost church time. Are there any thoughts, questions, reactions, curiosities about all that stuff that I've been rambling for 40 minutes? I thank you for your prayers. I thank you for your offerings. Indirectly, directly or indirectly, you are supporting this, right? A portion of your offerings go to the Synod's congregational mission offerings, which goes to support this, right? On top of any direct gifts that anyone might give. So thank you for your support. Thank you for your prayers. This is something that we're just kicking off this next spring. I'll be doing hopefully over the course of the next decade. And hopefully the result's going to be 100 new churches throughout the country, all of which are mission-minded, all of which are probably going to be the source of the next one over the course of the next decade. All right, I know all of you can't exactly see that, but for those of you that can, why don't you go ahead and join me in this prayer. Together, Lord, you know that countless souls are still searching for the peace that transcends all understanding. You have commissioned us to find the lost and have equipped us with your word and sacraments and your faithful promises. You assure us that you are able to do immeasurably more than all we ask or imagine. Confident of these truths, we humbly and boldly ask for your rich blessing upon the 100 missions in 10 years initiative. Bless our current missionaries and the fields that they serve. Provide ample manpower, money, and ministry resources. Grant wisdom, strength, perseverance, and joy to all involved in this effort. In all we do, move us to see and do our part in spreading the gospel so that more may know your saving peace, all to your glory. Amen. All right, thank you guys very much. Thank you. Good. Ned, right? Yeah, great. First day. Yeah, first day.
So there's a quote, and it's basically about like committing to personality. There comes a time in every man's life where he moves the back line. Take up